Now I'm going to show you a way of looking at all of the different place values that we have in this base 10 system. We have a value for each of the different groups, and we're going to take a look at how you can break it down and look at it in different ways. Okay, we have 4 expressions of a place. I'm going to pick the millions place. And the first way I can express it is to just write the numeral. Now, the word numeral just means the number form of 1 million. If I was to spell it out in English, it would look different than the number form. Okay, the numeral looks like this. A 1 in the millions place and 6 zeros afterwards. Those commas are important too. This comma separates the millions from the 3,000s place, the 100,000s, the 10,000s, and the single thousands. And this comma separates the thousands from the single units place. Call it the ones place, and I guess we could, because that's 100 ones, 10 ones, and single ones. Now, if we took the zeros out, something disastrous would happen to our number. It would drop all the way back here because there would be nothing to hold it in the millions place. So even though there's nothing in these places, we need the zeros there to hold the places in case we need to put something in that place and make the millions place stay where it belongs. Another expression is to write the place, and remember we picked millions, as 10 of the previous place. Now this is about the 3rd time we've seen this, so do you remember what it is? What's the place just before the millions place? Right, it's the 100,000s place. So a way of expressing it is that a million is 10 100,000s. And another way of saying that would be 10 times 100,000. The third way of expressing a place value is to write the number of times that 10 would be multiplied by itself to make that particular place. Now we're talking about the millions place, so think about it. How many times would you have to multiply 10 by itself to get 1 million? Any idea? Well, there's a trick to it, so let's look at the answer and we'll talk about the trick. You would have to multiply 10 by itself once, twice, so 10 by itself, times 10, times 10 again, times 10, times 10, times 10. You count them up 6 times to get the number 1 million. Now, you remember the trick about multiplying by 10? If you've never learned it before, it's a great trick. Anytime you multiply by 10, take the existing number and put a 0 on the end of it, and that really makes 10 the easiest number of all to multiply by. Pretty easy to remember your tens table. Whatever you're multiplying 10 by, put a 0 on the end of it. Okay, so let's take this step by step. All right, we started off with 10 and multiplied it by 10. You know the answer to that? Right, it's 100. Now we take the 100 as we go along here, step by step. Now we have 100. These two became 100. Now times this next 10, what would we have? 1,000. Now 1,000 times the next 10 gives you 10,000. 1,000 times 10 is 10,000. Or 1,000 add a 0. Now we're at 10,000. We want to multiply by 10 again. And we get now 100,000. Now it looks like this is going to be the correct answer. When we multiply by this last 10, the 6th 10 in the list, we get the 1 million. So, a little trick. Count up the zeros in any number, and you will know how many times 10 was multiplied by itself to make that number. 1, 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the reason for the 6 tens in the equation. And the last, 4th expression of a place, and I'm not sure if this is new to you or not, but is to write the value of the place as a power of 10. Now what does that mean? Well, a power of a number is the number of times that number is multiplied by itself to get a value. If you think about it, this goes back to the previous expression, which was 10 times itself. Well, think about how many times we just used 10 by itself to get 1 million, and hopefully this example will make sense. When we are writing a number as a power of a number. The power means how many times have you multiplied a number by itself to get this number here. Now you have a little exponent number. You'll notice right here it's the 6. That's telling you how many times to multiply the base number 10 by itself. Now with tens it's real easy because all we're doing is adding zeros on the end. But with other numbers it becomes a little bit more complicated. But we're talking about powers of 10 now, so we'll keep it simple and appreciate the fact that it's easy to do. So hopefully you see the trick. If you want to know what exponent number to use when you're doing powers of 10 only, count the number of zeros up, and that will tell you. 1 million is 10 to the 6th power, we call it. Well, let's take a look at powers of 10, see if it hasn't made sense to you so far, that maybe we can make sense of it now. So the number of zeros in a number matches the number of times 10 is multiplied by itself. And the times that 10 is multiplied by itself, that's called the power of 10. Okay. All right, 10 to the first power is obviously 10. It's 10 all by itself. Nothing's happening here. It just stays in its form. However, 100, which is our next place value, is 10 times 10. 2 zeros, 10 times 10, and makes sense, doesn't it? It's 10 to the second power. 10 was multiplied by itself, and it appeared twice in the equation. 10 times 10 equals 100. 1,000, and there's a definite pattern here, requires that you multiply 10 by itself 3 times. That'll give you the 3 zeros that happen to be in 1,000. And so it makes sense that we'd use a little exponent 3 here to tell us that this took place. Whether we see it or not, we know in our mind that if we see the third power, that number was multiplied by itself 3 times. 10,000, next step up, 1 more 0, 1 more time 10 has to be multiplied, and the exponent number changes to a 4. Making sense? I hope so. Okay, 100,000, 5 zeros, 10 is multiplied by itself. I'm sure you get it now. 5 times. And this would be 10 to the 5th power. And the last one we'll talk about, it does go on and on and on and on. You can get a pretty good big exponent number when you get up into the very, very high numbers. But 1 million has 6 zeros. We've seen this before. It requires that you multiply 10 by itself 6 times in order to reach a million. And the simplest way of writing this is to write it as the power of 10. It is 10 to the 6th power with a little exponent 6. Well, that's it for foundation of our numbering system. We've laid the groundwork, and we'll go on to other skills.